Chapter 1. The Almost Perfect Life. My fiancé dumped me a week before our wedding, and the worst part is, I honestly thought we were a love story people would envy. If you had seen us back then, you probably would have thought the same. We looked like that couple you scroll past on Instagram and think, damn, they really found their person. Cute photos, inside jokes in the captions, trips, anniversaries, the whole perfect couple starter pack. My name, S. Emily. I'm 30, pretty normal on paper. Decent corporate job, small circle of friends, close with my family, rent paid on time, no wild drama. I wasn't looking for some fairy tale. I just wanted someone solid. That's what Daniel seemed like when I met him. We met on one of those nights I didn't even want to go out. My friend Jess had been nagging me for weeks. You need to get out of the house, she said. You can't marry Netflix, Em. So there I was, dragging myself to this rooftop party downtown, already exhausted from the work week. The kind of place with fairy lights, cheap cocktails, Bluetooth speakers pretending to be a DJ, and way too many people shouting over each other. I remember standing near the bar, pretending to be busy on my phone so strangers wouldn't talk to me. Classic social armor. Then this guy walks up and goes, "You know, I think they're charging extra for standing here and fake texting." I looked up, ready to shut it down with one word, and then I saw him. Dark brown hair, neatly cut but not overly styled. Light skin, hazel eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up like he'd just casually done it, not like he'd definitely tried 3 times to get it right. I gave him a look. "Wow, that you're a game," he laughed, hands up in surrender. "Okay, fair. Let me try that again. I'm Daniel. You look like you'd rather be anywhere else, so I figured I'd give you one decent conversation before you escape." He was confident, but not pushy. That was the first thing I liked. The second was that he actually listened when I started talking. We moved from small talk to real talk faster than I expected. He told me he worked in project management at a tech company. I told him I worked in operations for a mid-sized firm. Most guys zone out when they hear operations. He didn't. He asked questions, real ones. How'd you end up there? What part of the job actually makes you want to quit? We ended up tucked into a quieter corner, nursing our drinks, while everyone else shouted and danced. He cracked jokes about the guy who kept almost dropping his beer, and the girl loudly fake, laughing at everything. We were people watching together, like we'd done it 100 times. When the night wound down and people started calling rideshares, he didn't do that awkward hover. He just said, "Okay, I'm not gonna pretend. I want your number. I like talking to you. Worst case, we've got someone new to complain about our jobs to." It was direct. No weird games. It felt refreshing. I gave it to him. The next morning, my phone buzzed before my alarm. "Morning, rooftop girl. Hope your feet survived. Coffee this week." I smiled into my pillow like a teenager. There's something about someone being that straightforward that just hits different. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into, "Hey, I'm cooking tonight. Come over." Weekends slowly went from my place versus his place to just our place, even before we officially lived together. He was attentive in the ways I'd always wished for and never really gotten. Good morning texts, random check-ins during the day, late night calls when one of us couldn't sleep. If I had a stressful meeting, he'd ask how it went later without me having to remind him. If I was sick, he showed up with soup and meds without being asked. My friends liked him. He remembered their names, their jobs, little details. He wasn't the guy that acted like my friend group was a chore to deal with. My parents liked him too. My mom said, "He seems solid, not flashy, but solid." My dad nodded and said, "He looks me in the eyes when he talks." That counts. 6 months in, he brought up moving in together. We were sprawled out on his couch, takeout containers everywhere, Netflix asking if we were still watching. He paused the show and said, "Okay, real question. Why are we paying 2 rents when we basically live together already?" I laughed. "Wow, you really know how to romance a girl. Move in with me, we'll save on utilities." He grinned. "I'm serious. I love having you here. I love waking up next to you. I don't like packing a bag every week. It feels temporary. I don't want temporary." Temporary. That word hit me. I dated guys who treated me like a placeholder. Fun for now, but never part of the long-term plan. With Daniel, it felt like he was drawing me into the long term, like we were actually building something. We talked about it like adults. Rent, bills, logistics, whose furniture made the cut. He even insisted we sign both our names on the lease. "Equal," he said. "We're a team." It felt safe. It felt right. Moving in was chaos in the cute way. Boxes everywhere. Random mugs that didn't match. Arguing over which old t-shirts could be thrown out and which were iconic and had to stay. Our routines settled in fast. Mornings with shared coffee and half-awake conversations. Evenings cooking together or ordering in, fighting over which show to watch. Weekends split between errands, lazy mornings, and hanging with friends. We had our little traditions. Friday night takeout and bad reality TV. Sunday morning pancakes, if neither of us was too hungover from someone's birthday the night before. It wasn't flashy, but it felt like home. And then, about 2 years after that rooftop party, he proposed. It happened at this moderately nice restaurant we liked. Not fancy, just cozy, with dim lighting and a server who always slipped us extra bread. I'd noticed he was off that day, checking his phone, fidgeting, overcompensating with dumb jokes. I figured he'd had a rough day at work. When dessert time came, I started to ask for the menu. He put his hand over mine. "I already ordered something," he said. His voice was a little too steady. The server came out with a small plate. On it, in slightly crooked chocolate script, were the words, "Will you marry me?" I remember staring at it for a second, brain lagging. Then I looked up, and he was already on one knee, right there between the tables. "Emily," he said, and for once he looked genuinely nervous. "I don't want to do life without you. You're my best friend, my calm, my chaos, all of it. Will you marry me?" The ring was sparkling under the restaurant lights. People were watching. Someone started clapping before I even opened my mouth. But I wasn't looking at the ring. I was looking at him. "Yeah," I whispered. Then louder, "Yes, of course." Everyone clapped. The server wiped away a fake tear like he'd seen this a dozen times and still loved it. A couple at the next table said, "Congratulations," and asked to see the ring. We went home floating. He popped a bottle of cheap champagne we'd been saving for a special occasion that never seemed special enough. Apparently, this was it. We called our parents on speaker. My mom screamed. My dad said, "About time." His mom cried. His dad made a joke about finally getting another guy at family holidays. My phone buzzed nonstop with OMG texts and heart emojis. It felt like the world was cheering us on. That night, lying in bed with the ring still on my finger, I stared at the ceiling and thought, "This is it. I did it. I found my person." In that moment, everything felt aligned. The years of bad dates, half relationships, and almosts finally made sense. They were all just leading here. I had no idea that this perfect life I was so proud of was already sitting on cracks I hadn't seen yet. And those cracks were about to split wide open. Chapter 2, Cracks in the Wedding Plans. The proposal flipped a switch in my life. One day, I was just Emily with a boyfriend. And the next day, I was Emily the bride-to-be, living inside group chats full of dress photos, venue links, and "you have to do this at your wedding" TikToks. If you've never planned a wedding, people forget to tell you that it slowly takes over your entire personality. My lunch breaks turned into florist calls, my evenings turned into budget spreadsheets, and my weekends turned into touring venues that all started to look the same after a while. At first, Daniel was right there with me. We'd sit on the couch with my laptop open, scrolling through options. "Too rustic," he'd say. "Too hotel conference room." "Too Instagram influencer." We finally found this venue that felt like us. It wasn't a castle or anything, but it had this big open hall with huge windows and a courtyard with string lights. You could picture people laughing out there at night, holding drinks, music floating through the doors. We booked it, paid a fat deposit that made my chest tight, but he squeezed my hand and said, "Worth it. We only do this once, right?" We picked a date. We started building the rest around it: photographer, DJ, caterer, daker. Every time we signed another contract, I felt my future settling into place like puzzle pieces clicking together. I saved countless photos, bouquets, hairstyles, table setups, cake designs. My camera roll turned into a wedding mood board. My friends would roll their eyes and say, "You're obsessed," but in a teasing way, not a mean one. Our families were all in. My mom started collecting random wedding things months in advance: candles, signs, little decor pieces she thought we might use. She'd send me pictures at the store like, "Do you like this? Or do I need to put it back before I embarrass myself?" His mom called me her girl and talked about how she'd always dreamed of helping plan her son's wedding. We had this one afternoon where all three of us went dress shopping. They sat on the little couch while I came out in one gown after another. When I found the dress, the one that actually made me cry, not just the one the consultant pressured me into, Dan's mom cried too. "I can just see you walking down the aisle in that," she said, hands covering her mouth. "This is really happening." Everything looked perfect. On paper, anyway. Then about 3 months before the wedding, his job got crazy. It started with small changes. He'd come home a little later than usual and sigh like he just carried the company on his back. "Long day, I'd ask." "You have no idea," he'd say, dropping his bag. New client, new deadlines. Everyone's freaking out. I told myself it was a phase. Work gets busy. It happens. But busy became the default. He used to text me throughout the day stupid memes, quick, how's your day messages. Those started to slow down, then stop. I'd send something funny, and he'd respond hours later with a dry lol or a thumbs up. No follow-up, no real conversation. At night, our routines shifted. Instead of cooking together or arguing over what to watch, he'd come home exhausted, eat whatever I made or we ordered, then crash on the couch with his phone in his hand. Can we look at the seating chart tonight? I'd ask. We have to confirm the number soon. He'd rub his face and groan. I've been staring at screens all day. Can we not do wedding admin tonight? My brain is fried. The first few times, I let it go. He was tired. I was tired. It made sense. But not tonight became not this week. And then we'll figure it out later. The thing about wedding planning is there is no later. Everything is a deadline. Vendors want answers. Invoices have due dates. So I started making decisions without him. Table layouts, menu choices, decor details. If I waited for Daniel to be in the right mood, we'd be walking down the aisle with no chairs, no food, and a Bluetooth speaker. He'd occasionally pop in with opinions when it was something fun. He cared about the open bar, the music, the suits. Anything unglamorous, contracts, payments, logistics magically fell on me. Red flag, absolutely. Did I call it that at the time? Nope. I called it he's just stressed, and I'm better at organizing things anyway. Then his schedule changed. He started going into work earlier, staying later, talking about client dinners and networking events. There were nights he'd text me at 6, running late, don't wait up for dinner. 9:30 would roll around, 10:30. He'd walk in smelling like a mix of cologne, outside air, and something I couldn't quite name. I'd ask how the dinner went, and he'd give me the vaguest answers. Fine, boring. You know how it is. Then he'd grab his phone and head straight to the shower. He'd never been secretive with his phone before. It used to sit face up on the coffee table, buzzing with fantasy football and group chats. Now it was either in his pocket or flipped face down. One night we were watching TV and his phone lit up. I glanced over automatically, like anyone would. Before I could even see the preview, he snatched it up and locked the screen. "Can you not spy on my phone?" he snapped. I stared at him. "I literally just looked in the direction of the table, Daniel, relax." He exhaled, rubbed his forehead. "Sorry, work stuff, NDAs. I just can't risk people seeing sensitive info." "Your boys' group chat is not an NDA," I said. He laughed, but it was forced. "We've got client threads on there too. It's just complicated. I don't want to get in trouble." It sounded semi-reasonable, but the defensiveness, that stuck with me. Then came the gym phase. Daniel had never been a gym guy. He was more of a do push-ups once, complain for 3 days guy. But out of nowhere, he got serious about his health. He signed up for a membership near his office. He bought new workout clothes, protein powder, a big water bottle, the whole starter kit. "I want to look good in the wedding photos," he said, flexing in the mirror. "And I've been sitting at a desk for years. It's catching up to me." On its own, that wouldn't be weird, but mixed with late nights, secretive phone behavior, and I don't have time for wedding stuff. That's when my gut really started buzzing. He'd say he was going to the gym after work and show up home even later. Sometimes his hair was still damp. Sometimes it was. Sometimes he smelled like the gym. Sometimes he smelled like he'd showered somewhere else. I'd ask how the workout was. He'd shrug. "Fine, I'm dying, but I'll get there." I started noticing these little disappearances in our conversations too. The way he'd slide past certain topics. If I mentioned something about us, our future, the honeymoon, kids someday, he'd say, "Can we not talk about 10 years from now when I barely survived today?" He used to look excited when we talked about the future. Suddenly, he looked cornered. One night, I'd spent hours working on the seating chart, trying to figure out where to place relatives who hated each other far enough apart so no one died before dessert. I printed a version and spread it on the table with little sticky notes for each person. When he came home, I said, "Hey, can you just look at this and make sure you're okay with where your family is sitting?" He glanced at it from the doorway. "Looks fine," I frowned. "You didn't actually look," he groaned. "Emily, I trust you, okay? Why are you making this a thing? I've had a long day. Can we not do this right now?" I felt this flash of anger and hurt. "This is our wedding," I said, "not my solo project. You're the one who wanted the big party, remember?" He rubbed his face. "I just said it looks fine. I don't know why you're jumping down my throat." "Because I'm drowning," I snapped. "I'm working, I'm emailing vendors, I'm tracking payments, I'm answering 100 questions a day, and you can't even spend 10 minutes looking at where Uncle Rob is sitting." He stared at me like I was speaking another language. Then he shook his head and walked toward the bedroom. "I can't do this with you right now," he said. "I'm exhausted." The door closed, not slammed, just firmly shut. I was left standing there with a handful of sticky notes and this crushing feeling that somehow I was the only one still excited about a day that was supposed to be about both of us. That night, I sat at the table alone, the glow of my laptop the only light on. I finished the seating chart by myself. I confirmed the menu by myself. I responded to vendor emails, signing both our names at the bottom like we were still a team. When I finally crawled into bed, he was already asleep, facing away from me, or pretending to be. Either way, he didn't move when I slid under the covers. I stared at the back of his head in the dark and thought, is this just what engagement stress looks like, or is something actually wrong? The problem is, when you love someone and you've publicly built your whole future with them, you don't want the answer to be something's wrong. You want it to be, we're just tired. Work is crazy. Weddings are hard on couples. So I clung to those explanations like a life raft. I told my friends, yeah, he's been distant, but it's just work. I told my mom, he's stressed, but he still wants this. I know he does. I told myself, once the wedding is done, things will go back to normal. What I didn't realize was that things weren't building toward our wedding anymore. They were building toward an explosion, and the fuse was already lit. Chapter 3, The Watch and the Other Woman. The night everything finally snapped didn't start out dramatic. No storm, no screaming match, no big movie moment. Just a regular weekday where I was tired, he was busy, and our lives were quietly drifting in opposite directions while we pretended not to notice. He texted around 6, running late, big client review, don't wait up for dinner." At this point, that sentence might as well have been copy-pasted. I stared at the message a little longer than usual, feeling that now familiar sting of disappointment, then put my phone down and went back to my laptop. The apartment was too quiet without him. I'd never say that out loud, but it was. The TV hummed in the background, emails pinged. The fridge made that low, constant noise, but the place still felt empty. I reheated leftovers, ate straight from the container, and tried to push down the knot in my chest. Every time I looked at the calendar on the wall, the red circle around our wedding date glared back at me like a joke I wasn't in on yet. Around 10, I heard his key in the door. He walked in with that same tired posture, shoulders slightly slumped, tie loosened, bag hanging off one arm. "Hey," I said, forcing a small smile. "How was the big review?" He dropped his stuff near the couch. "Exhausting," he said. "Client S being a nightmare. I'm dead." He didn't kiss me hello. He didn't ask about my day. He just kicked off his shoes and headed straight for the bathroom. I watched him go, something in me both aching and annoyed. "Do you want me to heat something up?" I called out. "Nah," he shouted back over the running water. We grabbed food with the team. I stared at the empty takeout container in front of me and swallowed the petty response fighting to come out. Of course they did. Of course he had energy for work dinners, but none for me. The shower turned on. A minute later, his laughter echoed faintly through the door at something he'd just seen on his phone. It hit me then how long it had been since he laughed like that with me. I started cleaning up, trying to keep my hands busy so my brain wouldn't spiral. Wiped the counters, loaded the dishwasher, straightened the pile of wedding notes on the table, even though I'd already done it twice that day. When I walked back into the living room, that's when I saw it. His Apple Watch, sitting on the nightstand by the couch, screen lit up, band unbuckled like he'd tossed it down on autopilot. He almost never took it off downstairs. Usually it lived on his wrist, tracking his mysterious gym gains and busy workday steps. I didn't move at first. I just stood there, looking at it. Another notification flashed across the screen. A message preview. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I know people say, trust is not checking their phone. And yeah, in a perfect world, you don't. But we do not live in a perfect world. We live in a world where my fiancé had morphed into a stranger right in front of me. I walked over slowly, every step heavier than it should have been. My fingers hovered above the watch like it was something radioactive. I didn't even mean to tap it. My hand was shaking, but I did. The screen lit up fully. The contact name at the top said, D. Cute, just his letter. Like it was playful, like they were being subtle. The latest message stared up at me. I can't wait until she's out of the picture for good. Counting down the days, babe, the room tilted. For a second, I actually thought I might pass out. My knees went a little weak, and I had to grab the edge of the nightstand to steady myself. I blinked hard, willing the words to rearrange into something else. Anything else. Some kind of inside joke I just didn't understand. But they stayed exactly the same. Out of the picture, counting down the days. My brain scrambled for other explanations. Maybe it was about a client. Maybe she was a terrible boss or coworker. Maybe babe was just a weird nickname between friends. My gut wasn't buying any of it. My thumb moved almost on its own, scrolling up. Message after message blurred past my eyes. How did dinner go? Did she suspect anything? I hate going home to her now. I just want to be with you. I swear, once this wedding stuff is done, it'll finally be us. There was no misreading it. This wasn't work talk. This wasn't some innocent joke. This was my fiancé, the man who'd gotten on one knee and promised me forever, talking about me like I was an obstacle he had to clear. A photo popped up in the thread. A woman, maybe late 20s. Blonde hair, styled perfectly. Smirking at the camera in a dim restaurant, low-cut dress, glass of wine raised. The caption, "Wish it was you here instead of her." I could feel my pulse in my throat, in my fingertips. Every nerve in my body felt like it was buzzing and numb at the same time. My first instinct was denial. This can't be real. It's gotta be old. It's a misunderstanding. Then I checked the timestamps. 2 nights ago, last week, a month before that, 6 months worth of messages. While I was stressing over centerpieces and floral budgets, they were planning weekends, sneaking into hotels, complaining about how exhausting it was to pretend everything was fine with me. I scrolled and scrolled, my eyes burning. Him. She keeps talking about the wedding like it's this big fairy tale. I feel like such a jerk. Her. Then leave. You're just dragging it out. I want to wake up next to you every day without worrying. Him. I just need to find the right time. It's complicated. People have already paid for stuff. Her. So I'm supposed to wait while you play fiancé. There it was. My life, my engagement, my future, reduced to complicated. And people have paid for stuff. One message stopped me cold. Her. Promise me I'm not just your backup plan. Him. You're not. You're the upgrade. I had to put the watch down. My hands were shaking too hard. I set it back exactly how I'd found it, like putting it down softly might somehow keep the damage from fully landing. I stepped back, breathing shallow, every inhale shaky. The shower was still running. Steam curled out from under the bathroom door, faint music from his phone muffled behind it. If this were a movie, that would have been the moment I burst in, threw the watch at him, screamed, sobbed, demanded answers, while dramatic music played. But this wasn't a movie. This was my real life, and I was too stunned to even cry yet. I walked to the kitchen in a daze, grabbed a glass of water I didn't drink, and stared at nothing. My mind replayed the messages on a loop. Every babe, every our future, every once she's out of the picture. Memories started rearranging themselves. All the late nights, the suddenly private phone, the gym obsession, the distance. They didn't look like stress anymore. They looked like rehearsals for a life without me. Part of me wanted to rush back to the watch, scroll more, dig into every detail. Another part of me couldn't stand the thought of finding out even more. After a few minutes, my autopilot kicked back in. I went back to the watch. This time, I wasn't just reading. I was collecting. I took photos of the screen with my own phone. Message threads, dates, her name when it finally showed up in a reservation confirmation he'd forwarded. Alyssa. Screen after screen, captured, saved. I didn't have a plan yet. I just knew I wasn't going to let this disappear into thin air when he inevitably tried to spin it. When I was done, I put his watch back down again, careful, almost respectful, even though I wanted to smash it into the wall. The shower turned off. My heart jumped into my throat. I heard him moving around, toothbrush, cabinet doors, footsteps approaching. I forced my face to relax, rolled my shoulders, tried to smooth out the panic in my expression the way you smooth wrinkles out of clothes. Walked out in a towel hair damp, scrolling his phone. He glanced up and smiled like nothing in the world was wrong. "Hey," he said, "you still up?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who told me I was his best friend, his calm, his chaos, all of it, while simultaneously telling another woman she was the upgrade. For a split second, rage shot through me so hot I almost saw red. I wanted to scream, to throw every word I'd just read back in his face. Instead, I swallowed it. "Hard, yeah," I said quietly. "Just couldn't sleep." He walked over, leaned down, kissed the top of my head like he hadn't just set our life on fire. "Tough day?" he asked. "Wedding stuff stressing you out again?" The irony almost made me laugh. "A bit," I said. "Yeah." He nodded like he understood. "I keep telling you, don't let it get to you. It's just one day." I held his gaze. One day. One day he was perfectly willing to blow up. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Just one day." He grabbed his watch from the nightstand without even looking at it, slipped it back on, and headed to the bedroom. "Come to bed," he called over his shoulder. "We'll figure everything out. It's going to be fine." I watched him disappear down the hall and realized something had shifted inside me. A few minutes earlier, I was the fiancé planning our dream wedding, doubting myself, bending over backward to make things work. Now, I was something else. I wasn't just hurt. I wasn't just shocked. I was awake. I knew what he was doing. I had proof. And for the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't crazy. I also knew one more thing. I wasn't going to confront him right away. Not because I was scared, because he had a head start on his story. He'd had months to frame this in his mind, why he was unhappy, how he tried his best, how I was too much, how the wedding was too stressful. If I blew up now, he'd twist it, turn my pain into proof that I was unstable, emotional, dramatic. The crazy fiancé who couldn't handle life. No, he didn't get to control the narrative this time. So I took a slow breath, turned off the living room light, and walked toward the bedroom, not as the girl begging him to love her, but as the woman quietly deciding exactly how this was going to end. Chapter 4. The breakup before the wedding. Morning made everything worse. Sunlight has this rude way of making your nightmares feel real instead of distant. I woke up next to him, his arm draped over me like nothing had changed, and for a second, my brain tried to reset to normal. Then I remembered the messages. Once she's out of the picture, you're the upgrade. I carefully slid out from under his arm and went to the kitchen, my mind spinning. The coffee machine hissed and dripped like any other day, but the sound felt too loud in the quiet apartment. I needed a plan, not just a confrontation. A plan. The old version of me would have gone nuclear the second I saw those messages. Screaming, throwing things, demanding answers he'd twist anyway. But after everything, years together, a whole wedding built, our families involved, I wasn't interested in just blowing up and walking away empty-handed. I opened my laptop instead, pulled up our shared email, The one we used for vendors, travel bookings, anything ours. I searched his name, her name, the hotel chain they'd used, the restaurant he mentioned in one of the texts, receipts, confirmation emails, calendar invites he thought he'd hidden under vague titles. He was sloppy, cocky, even, like it never crossed his mind I'd be smart enough or cold enough to dig. With every new piece I found, the hurt in my chest shifted. It stopped feeling like a raw wound and started hardening into something sharper. He had used my trust as cover. He had used our wedding as a prop. He had stood in front of family and friends and called me his future while actively auditioning a replacement. That morning, while he showered and got dressed like it was just another workday, I quietly forwarded everything to a separate email I'd created years ago and barely touched. A backup, a just in case. Turns out, just in case finally arrived. He came into the kitchen, tie half done, hair still damp. "Hey," he said casually, grabbing a mug. "Coffee smells amazing." I watched him move around the kitchen we'd built together. The mugs we'd chosen. The counter we'd argued over because he wanted something low maintenance, and I wanted it to look nice on camera. "Morning," I said, kept my tone neutral. My heart was pounding hard enough to make my hands sweat, but I didn't show it. He poured his coffee, leaned against the counter, and talked about nothing, the schedule, the weather, office gossip. He didn't notice my eyes were a little too focused on him. If he could pretend, so could I over the next few days. I didn't confront him. I watched, listened, collected. Every late night, every gym session, every "I'm too tired to talk about the wedding." I kept building the case, not for court, for reality, for when he eventually tried to spin what he'd done into some noble act of emotional honesty. The tension inside me stretched tight, like a wire pulled to its limit. It was only a matter of time before something snapped. I didn't have to wait long. About a week later, he came home early. No warning. No running late tonight. No at the gym. I was on the couch with my laptop, going over final invoices. He walked in with a weird, fixed expression on his face. Not angry, not happy, just set. "Hey," I said slowly, "you're early." He didn't answer right away. He put his bag down carefully, took off his jacket, straightened it over the back of a chair like he was buying time. "Can we talk?" he finally asked. His voice was serious in that rehearsed way. There it was, the moment. Every cell in my body went on alert. I closed the laptop. "Sure," I said. "What's up?" He sat across from me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he was about to break bad news to a client. "I've been thinking a lot," he started, "about us, about the wedding, about everything." I just watched him, let him talk. "I feel like we've been off," he said. "You've been stressed, I've been stressed. We're fighting more." It's like everything turned into a checklist, and somewhere along the way, I lost the excitement. He took a breath, eyes shining with fake sincerity. "I don't think it's fair to you if my heart isn't fully in this. You deserve someone who's 100% sure. And right now, I'm not." It was almost impressive. He'd practiced this. Maybe in the mirror, maybe with her. He kept going. "I care about you. I always will. You're important to me. But I don't think getting married right now is the right move. I think we rushed things. I think we need to call off the wedding." There it was, the line, the thing he'd been easing himself toward for months. I waited for the usual script from myself, the panicked questions, the pleading, the "what can I do to fix this" reflex. It didn't come. Instead, I just felt calm. Cold, almost. "Okay," I said. He blinked. "What?" I said. "Okay," I repeated. "If that's how you feel, we won't get married." He looked thrown. He'd clearly expected a meltdown. Anger, tears, something he could point to later and say, "See, she was unstable." It never would have worked. "Emily," he said, softening his tone, "I know this is a shock. You can be honest with me. You don't have to pretend you're okay." I tilted my head slightly. "Oh, I'm not pretending I'm okay," I said. "I'm just not going to beg someone to marry me when they're already halfway out the door." He swallowed, looked almost guilty. "Almost. We can tell people it was mutual," he said quickly. "That we both realized it wasn't right. We don't have to drag anyone into the details. It'll be cleaner that way, cleaner." That word bounced around in my skull like a bullet. "You want this to be clean?" I asked quietly. "Yeah," he said. "I mean, why make it messier than it has to be? We can cancel what we can, take the hit on the rest, apologize to our families. We'll both move on. It's better than going through with a wedding I'm not sure about." He really sounded like he believed that made him noble, like he was doing me some big favor by dumping me before the vows. I studied his face, the carefully measured concern, the way he was trying to manage my reaction like a crisis at work. "Is this about Alyssa?" I asked. The name dropped into the air like a bomb. His whole body stiffened. His eyes snapped to mine. "What?" I didn't break eye contact. "Alyssa," I repeated, "from the networking event. Blonde, late 20s, likes hotel bars and sending you messages about counting down the days until I'm out of the picture. That Alyssa." He went white, like all the blood evacuated his face at once. I don't know what you're talking about," he tried. His voice cracked on the last word. I almost laughed. "Almost." "Daniel," I said calmly, "I've seen the messages." He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes flashed through denial, anger, panic, and something almost like resentment that I'd caught him. "You went through my stuff," he finally snapped. "That's Emily, that's such a violation of privacy. What were you doing on my watch?" There it was. The pivot, shift the focus, make me the problem. "I was cleaning," I said evenly. It lit up. "And your privacy was you telling another woman I was a placeholder." He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling hard. "Okay, you know what? Yes, I've been talking to someone. But it's not what you think." I raised an eyebrow. "It's exactly what I think." He launched into a speech about how he'd been unhappy for a while, how he felt like we were going through the motions, how the wedding planning made him feel trapped, how meeting her confused him. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said. "It started as friendship. She just got me. I could talk to her about things I felt like I couldn't tell you without it turning into a fight." That stung. Not because it was true, but because he was twisting our arguments, the ones I'd begged him to engage in, to fix things, into proof that I was unreasonable. "If you felt that way, you should have talked to me," I said. "Not her. Not like that. Not while I was picking out dresses and signing contracts with your last name on them." He looked away. "I tried," he muttered. "You didn't want to hear it." I thought about the times he'd said I'm tired and walked away. The times I'd asked him to show up and he'd shut down instead. That wasn't trying. "So your solution," I said slowly, was to keep sleeping in my bed, planning our wedding, while auditioning someone else. He flinched. Don't say it like that. How should I say it? I asked. You emotionally and physically cheated on me while using our wedding as a smokescreen. Is that better? He stood up, started pacing. I didn't want to hurt you, he said. I know that sounds insane, but I didn't. I just got in too deep. And then it snowballed. I didn't know how to stop it. You could have stopped it by not starting it, I said. Or by ending it the second you realized it was wrong. Or by calling off the wedding the minute you caught feelings for someone else, instead of waiting until the last possible second. He ran both hands over his face. I'm owning it now, he said. Isn't that what matters? I'm being honest. I'm saying I can't go through with this. I'm not going to lie to you at the altar. The way he said it, like I should be grateful he wasn't going to fake his vows, made something cold settle in my stomach. You're not honest, I said quietly. You're cornered. He stopped pacing, looked at me. What do you want from me, Emily? He asked. Do you want me to marry you and resent you, cheat on you later, get divorced in 2 years? I'm trying to do the right thing here. There it was. His favorite role, the misunderstood good guy making hard choices. I took a breath. My first instinct was to tell him exactly what I wanted, to unleash everything burning in my chest. But another part of me remembered the messages about money, deposits, minimal damage. He wasn't cutting things off because of some noble moral awakening. He was cutting me off because he thought he'd found a better deal. And he wanted to walk away with as little fallout as possible. So I shifted. Okay, I said again, more firmly. You're right about one thing. I don't want to marry someone who doesn't want me. We will not be getting married. He looked thrown again by how calm I was. We'll cancel, I continued. You can tell people whatever story you want. I won't argue with you in public. I won't blow up your phone. I won't show up at your job. You'll get your clean break. His shoulders dropped in visible relief. Thank you, he said. I really didn't want this to end in a big scene. I held his gaze. Oh, Daniel, I said softly. It will end in a scene, just not the one you're planning. He frowned. What does that mean? Nothing you need to worry about today, I replied. Right now, we're just 2 people who agreed not to get married. He studied me like he was trying to read a page written in invisible ink. He saw the calm. He didn't see the calculation underneath. Okay, he said slowly. I'll call my parents tonight. We'll figure out the logistics. We can split the losses as fairly as possible. The losses, I repeated, like our relationship was a bad stock investment. He went to make his calls. I heard him in the other room, voice heavy, telling his mom some sanitized version of the story. We grew apart. We realized we weren't the right fit. It's mutual. I almost laughed again. If this was mutual, then getting hit by a car is a mutual decision between you and the driver. When he was done, he came back with red-rimmed eyes like he'd just done something brave. This is for the best, he said. You'll see that one day. Maybe, I said, but you're going to see something too. What? What happens? I said quietly. When you build your happiness on someone else's heartbreak. He didn't understand then. He thought he'd escaped the worst of it. He truly believed he could just pivot into his new life with minimal fallout. He had no idea I wasn't just the girl he left behind. I was the one person who now knew the truth, had the proof, and had absolutely nothing left to lose. Chapter 5. Planning the Perfect Karma. After he honestly called off our wedding, the world expected me to fall apart. And don't get it twisted, I did break, just not in the way everyone imagined. It wasn't screaming in the street or smashing plates dramatic. It was quieter, colder, like someone had opened a window inside my chest and let the warm air out. The first few days were a blur of logistics and pity. We called vendors, or more accurately, I called vendors, offered to help, but he always managed to be just a little too busy or too emotionally drained when it came time to dial. "Hey, it's Emily," I'd say, my voice doing that weird thing where it tried to sound normal and kept wobbling anyway. "I'm so sorry, but we need to cancel the wedding booking." Most of them were kind. They'd say things like, "I'm so sorry to hear that, and we understand, life happens." Then they'd gently remind me about the deposit policies: non-refundable, partial credit, future event options. Every cancellation felt like paying a fee to close an account that should have never been opened in the first place. My parents watched me carefully. My mom cried more than I did. She kept coming over with food and random little things she thought might comfort me: candles, blankets, homemade soup, like I'd just come down with the flu. One afternoon, she sat opposite me at the kitchen table, eyes red, hands wrapped around a mug of tea she'd barely touched. "Sweetheart," she said quietly, "are you sure you're okay?" I shrugged. "I'm not," I said, "but I'm not shattered. I don't know. It's like everything inside me went numb and then rearranged itself." She studied me for a long moment. "You're too calm," she said. "Your whole wedding just blew up and you're making spreadsheets." I glanced at the open laptop in front of me. She wasn't wrong. I had tabs open with lists of what we'd paid, what we could recover, what we'd lost. It wasn't because I cared about the money more than the relationship. It was because focusing on numbers made it feel less personal. "If I fall apart right now," I said, "I'm not sure I'll be able to get back up." She reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. "You don't have to be strong all the time, you know," she said. Something in me hardened. "I'm not being strong," I replied. "I'm getting even." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Emily." "No," I said, shaking my head. "Not petty, not illegal, not crazy. I'm not burning his house down or keying his car. But he is not walking away from this looking like some noble martyr who just followed his heart. Not after what I saw." I told her everything then. The watch, the messages, the hotel receipts, the upgrade. Her face changed in real time. Shock, hurt, then a deep, simmering anger only a mom can have when someone hurts her kid. "That little," she started, cutting herself off before the full word escaped. She took a breath. "So he didn't just get cold feet. He had a backup bride." "Pretty much," I said. "He's probably already soft launching her to his friends as we speak." She sat back. "I don't blame you for wanting karma," she said slowly. "I just don't want you to destroy yourself in the process." "I'm not going to destroy myself," I said. "I'm going to let him destroy himself with the truth he's been hiding." After she left, I stared at the laptop again. But this time, I wasn't just looking at deposits and invoices. I was thinking bigger, longer. He thought this was over. To him, the story went like this. He got scared, got confused, met someone new, did the right thing by calling off the wedding, and now he gets a fresh start. He didn't factor in the part where I still existed, where I still had proof, where I still had access to our shared world, our emails, our vendors, our mutual friends, his family. I didn't want to scream on social media. I didn't want to make some 10-slide Instagram manifesto exposing him to the world like a messy influencer breakup. I wanted something precise, surgical. So I did what I do best. I made a plan. First step, secure all the evidence. I organized the screenshots I'd taken from his watch, labeled them by date, saved them in multiple folders and cloud accounts. If he lost his mind and tried to nuke everything later, I'd still have copies. Then I went back through our shared email again, this time focusing on anything that connected him to her. There were restaurant confirmations that matched nights he'd claimed to be with the team. There was a hotel booking under his name, with a room type that screamed romantic weekend, not corporate trip. One email stopped me. A receipt for a fancy rooftop bar reservation, the kind you needed to book weeks in advance. The date, exactly 1 month after his proposal to me. In the messages, he'd said, "I feel bad. I just proposed, and I'm already thinking about you. I don't know what's wrong with me." She replied, "Nothing's wrong with you. You just finally know what you really want." I felt a wave of disgust rise in my throat. This wasn't some last-minute crisis. He'd been cheating on me almost from the start of our engagement. Second step, understand his endgame. I muted his social media, but I didn't block him. Blocking would have cut off my view. I just quietly watched from a distance, checking in when I needed to. As predicted, his healing arc started pretty quickly. Gym selfies, motivational quotes about choosing yourself and walking away from what no longer serves you. I almost threw my phone when I saw that one. Like I'd been a bad habit he'd finally quit, not a person he'd betrayed. A few weeks after the breakup, a soft launch appeared. A photo of 2 wine glasses clinking, her nails visible, her bracelet, her silhouette reflected in the restaurant window. Caption: "Sometimes timing is everything." I wanted to comment, "Yeah, like the timing of you crawling into my bed right after those dates." But I didn't. I waited, watched. Soft launch turned into hard launch in under 2 months. A picture of the 2 of them together, smiling like a magazine ad. Her face fully visible now. "Alyssa," the caption. "I didn't know love could be this easy." The comments were full of people who didn't know the story. "So happy for you. You deserve this. Finally, someone who matches your energy." I screenshotted those 2, not because they mattered, but because it reminded me of how fast people switch sides when they don't know the truth. Third step, wait for him to lock himself in. I didn't have to wait long. 6 months after walking out on our wedding, he proposed to her. I found out through mutuals, screenshots of her ring, her hand, captions full of forever and finally. My stomach clenched when I saw the location tag. The same venue. He booked the same venue we had chosen. The place I'd cried over because I'd fallen in love with the courtyard lights and the way the sun hit the windows at sunset. He even reused a couple of vendors, the DJ, the caterer. Probably because it was convenient. Probably because he assumed they'd forgotten about me as soon as the contract was canceled. But I hadn't forgotten them. And they hadn't forgotten me either. That's when the plan really crystallized. I didn't want to ruin some random day in his life out of nowhere. I wanted to ruin the one day he was trying to rewrite our story with someone else. The day he stood in the same place, in the same suit, pretending he was starting fresh, when really, he was just recycling a script with a new co-star. His wedding was the stage. All I had to do was pull back the curtain. I started with the vendors. The photographer we'd originally booked and shot engagement photos with was still in my contacts. We'd gotten along. She'd been kind, creative, easy to talk to. I called her. "Hey," I said when she picked up. "It's Emily, from Daniel and Emily's almost wedding." There was a beat of recognition. "Oh my God, hi," she said gently. How are you? I heard things didn't work out. I'm so sorry." "Yeah," I said, "they didn't, but I have a question, and I need you to be honest with me." "Of course." "Did he book you for another wedding?" I asked. "With someone named Alyssa, same venue." She hesitated. "That's confidential," she said slowly. Then she sighed. "But yes, he did. I assumed you knew." I laughed, and it came out more bitter than I meant. "Oh, I know now," I said. "I just wanted to confirm." She stayed quiet, waiting. "I'm not calling to tell you what to do," I continued. "You're a professional. This is your livelihood. But I think you deserve to know that while you were taking our engagement photos, he was already cheating on me with her. The new bride. She's the affair partner." Her breath caught. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," I said. "I have receipts, messages, dates, hotel bookings. You don't have to see them if you don't want to. I just thought that since your name and business are attached to these weddings, you should know what you're stepping into." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Thank you for telling me. I'll think about whether I want to stay on this job." I didn't push. I didn't guilt her. I just gave her the truth and let her sit with it. Next was the DJ. He'd been furious about how last minute the cancellation had been. Even though we'd paid what we owed, he'd still lost out on a prime date. When I called and explained that Daniel had reused the same date range and same vendor list for a new bride, I could practically hear him smirking through the phone. "This guy really thinks I'm stupid enough to let him waste my time twice," he said. "Again," I replied, "this is your call. I'm not asking you to do anything. I just didn't want you blindsided." "Nah," he said. "Thanks for the heads up. I'll take care of it." I didn't know what that meant exactly, but I didn't need to. The point wasn't to orchestrate every detail. It was to make sure the people closest to his new beginning weren't being manipulated the way I had been. Then I did something even he couldn't spin later. I reached out to his mother. We hadn't talked much since the breakup. Things were polite, but distant. I knew he'd told her his carefully edited version of the story. We realized it wasn't right. It was mutual. One evening, I sat on my bed with my phone in my hand for a full 10 minutes before hitting call. She answered on the second ring. "Emily," she said, surprised. "Hi, dear." "Hi," I said. "Do you have a few minutes? There's something I think you should know before Daniel's next wedding." Silence. Then a cautious, "Of course." I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I walked her through the timeline like I was presenting a case. Meeting Alyssa, the messages, the upgrade comment, the hotel stays, the emotional affair that wasn't just emotional. I could hear her breathing getting heavier on the other end. At one point, she whispered, "Oh, Daniel, what have you done?" "I'm not telling you this because I want you to hate your son," I said. "I'm telling you because you deserved the truth before you watch him walk down the aisle again and clap for a lie." She was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she said, "I believed him when he said it was mutual, I thought. I thought sometimes good people just don't work out. I didn't know he had someone else." "He did," I said, "the entire time. And maybe she didn't know about me at first either, but she knows now. She stayed, that's on her." She exhaled shakily. "Thank you for telling me," she said. "I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but thank you." "You don't have to do anything," I replied. "I just didn't want to sit at home, watching pictures of his perfect, new wedding pop up on my feed, knowing you were all there under a lie." When I hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, like I'd finally moved out of victim mode and into something else. I wasn't trying to control how everyone reacted. I was just removing the mask he'd worked so hard to keep on. The final piece was the hardest, deciding what I would do on that day. A part of me wanted to stay as far away as possible. Block him, mute everyone, go somewhere that didn't have Wi-Fi, and pretend the wedding wasn't happening at all. But another part of me, the part that had stood in that venue months, earlier imagining my own future, couldn't stomach the idea of him standing in that same spot, saying forever again, like the first forever didn't matter. I didn't want to throw a scene. I didn't want to be the messy ex storming and screaming, "I object," like some cheap movie trope. I wanted to be a mirror. I wanted him to see himself clearly for once, and I wanted everyone else to see it too. So I picked out a simple dress, not white, not some revenge outfit, just something clean, understated, that made me feel put together. I printed a few of the key screenshots, not to wave around like a banner, but to have them ready if anyone tried to call me a liar. I checked the time of the ceremony, the location, the guest list preview on their wedding website, and then I made my final decision. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to show up, not as the jilted ex, not as the crazy stalker, but as the person whose life he'd set on fire, standing in the smoke he'd created. He wanted a clean break. He wanted minimal damage. He wanted to walk into his new happily ever after with everyone cheering. But that's the thing about karma. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It shows up on its own schedule. And for him, it was about to walk through those venue doors, right on time. Chapter 6, His New Wedding and the Crash. The morning of his new wedding, I woke up strangely calm. Not happy, not sad, just steady. Like my brain had finally accepted that this wasn't a bad dream I could wake up from. It was reality, and I was done pretending otherwise. I got ready slowly. No rushing, no frantic energy, no dramatic soundtrack. Just me, a mirror, and the kind of quiet you get right before a storm hits. I chose a simple dress in a muted color. Nothing that screamed, "Look at me." I didn't want to be the center of attention. I wanted to be the truth in the room no one had prepared for. Makeup light, hair down, no big jewelry, no drama. I wanted to look like myself, not some character in his story. Before I left, I checked my bag, phone, keys, a small folder with printed screenshots, just in case anyone decided to call me crazy or accuse me of making things up. I stared at that folder for a second longer than I needed to. It wasn't about revenge porn or public humiliation. It was about receipts, about making sure that if lies got thrown around, I had facts. The venue looked exactly the way I remembered. Parking lot, big doors, string lights already on, even though the sun was still out. Guests drifting in, dressed up, laughing, taking selfies like they were walking into a fairy tale. My chest tightened for a second. I'd pictured this place with my dress, my bouquet, my father walking me down the aisle. Now I was walking in alone through the same doors, but for a story I wouldn't be starring in. A few people recognized me immediately. Some froze mid-step. Some whispered. Some looked away fast, like eye contact might drag them into something they didn't want to acknowledge. I smiled politely, nodded, didn't start anything. I wasn't there to perform. Inside, the decor was familiar and different at the same time. Same basic layout. Same hall, same windows. Their colors instead of mine. Her flowers instead of mine. The DJ was there setting up. We made brief eye contact. He gave the tiniest nod like, I see you, I remember, then went back to his work. His relatives started drifting in. His aunt, his cousins, a couple of his coworkers. Some of them came over, awkward smiles, soft, "Hi, Emily, how are you?" "I'm good," I said. And the thing was, I meant it more than I thought I would. Not healed, not over it, but good enough to stand there without shaking. His mother walked in a little later. When she saw me, she stopped. Really stopped. For a second, I thought she might turn around and leave. Then she walked straight toward me. "Emily," she said quietly. Her eyes were already glossy. "Hi," I replied. She took a breath. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come." "I wasn't sure either," I admitted, but I didn't want to sit at home pretending this wasn't happening. She nodded slowly. "I understand." We looked at each other for a long moment. There was a time when she'd called me her future daughter-in-law. Now we were two women standing in the fallout of her son's choices. "I read everything you sent," she said softly. I confronted him. He tried to minimize it, said it wasn't that serious, said he was confused, but the dates don't lie. "No," I said, "they don't." She swallowed hard. "I can't stop this wedding," she whispered. "He's an adult. He's made his choice. But I needed you to know I don't see you as the problem. I see what he did." That almost broke me more than anything he'd done. Being believed, being seen. "Thank you," I managed. "That's more than I expected." We didn't hug. It wasn't that kind of moment. But there was an understanding between us now that hadn't existed before. People started being ushered into the ceremony space. I slid into a seat in the back row, near the aisle. Not hiding, not front and center. Just there. The hall filled with the soft murmur of guests. The usual pre-wedding buzz. Who's wearing what? How beautiful the place looks. How excited they are. I sat quietly, hands folded in my lap, heart beating steadily. Not racing, not shaking, just a low thrum under my ribs. Then he walked in. Same basic look, dark suit, tie, hair styled with just enough effort to look natural. For a split second, I saw the man I'd once loved. The one who'd held my hand at this very venue and talked about our future. Then his eyes met mine. He froze mid-step, just for half a second. But I saw it, the panic. The "what is she doing here" scream behind his eyes. He recovered quickly, forced a smile for the guests, took his place at the front, But the damage was done. He wasn't relaxed anymore. He was rattled. Good. The music shifted. People turned. She walked in. Alyssa, hair perfect, dress fitted and dramatic, meant to be remembered. She was glowing, the way brides do when they're sure the story they're walking into is beautiful. For a second, I hated her. Not because she was prettier or younger, but because she was carrying the version of him I'd once believed in, like she'd stolen not just my man, but my narrative. Then I reminded myself, she'd agreed to build a life with a guy who'd already proven he could live a double life. Whatever she thought she'd won, it came with a debt. She saw me halfway down the aisle, her eyes locked on mine, confusion flickering into recognition. Then anger. She turned her face away sharply and focused on him at the front. Fine. The efficient started talking. The usual lines: love, commitment, honesty, choosing each other every day. Each word felt like a joke only a few of us in the room actually understood. I wasn't planning to do anything. Not directly. I was there to witness, nothing more. But karma, as usual, had other ideas. When it came time for the vows, Alyssa went first. Her voice trembled in that romantic way. She talked about how he'd shown her what real love is, how everything before him was practice, how he'd saved her from relationships where she'd felt unseen. I wondered if she heard herself, if she knew she was describing the same illusion I'd once fallen for. Then it was his turn. He took her hands, looked into her eyes, and started speaking. He said all the things he'd said to me in different words. How he'd never felt this sure. How she made him want to be a better man. How he couldn't wait to build a life with her. My jaw almost clenched hard enough to hurt. Better man. Right. He was mid-sentence, something about always choosing truth and love, when a chair scraped behind me. His mother stood up. The room went still. Even the air seemed to pause. She stepped into the aisle slowly, face pale but set. Her voice came out clear, stronger than I'd ever heard it. "I'm sorry," she said, addressing the efficient, the guests, the couple at the front. "But before you finish those vows, I think there's something everyone here deserves to know." A low ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. My heart pounded against my ribs so hard I actually pressed a hand to my chest. Daniel's face drained of color. "Mom," he said sharply, "sit down." She didn't. She took her phone out, opened something, and read. "I feel bad. I just proposed, and I'm already thinking about you. I don't know what's wrong with me," she read. "Nothing's wrong with you. You just finally know what you really want." The room sucked in a collective breath. She continued, voice steady. "Once she's out of the picture, it'll finally be our time. You're not the backup, you're the upgrade." Gasps, whispers. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Alyssa's hand slid out of his. Slowly, like her fingers suddenly realized what they were holding onto. She stared at him, eyes wide. Is that us?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. He stammered. "It's out of context." "It's out of context," his mother snapped. "Daniel, you were engaged to Emily when you wrote those messages. You stood in this same venue with her. You let her family pay deposits, and you were already telling another woman she was your upgrade." Every head turned, some toward me, some toward him, some toward Alyssa. He glanced at me, eyes burning with a mix of panic and blame. Like this was my fault for not staying conveniently invisible. "This isn't the time or place," he hissed at his mother. "We can talk about this later." She shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "This is exactly the time and place. You're about to make vows in front of God and everybody about honesty and faithfulness, and half this room doesn't even know what you did the first time." The officiant looked like he wanted to evaporate. He glanced between them, clearly wondering if he should step in or stay silent. All eyes swung back to Alyssa. Her face had gone pale under all that professional makeup. She looked at her mother-in-law-to-be, at him, at me. When her gaze landed on me, there was no more confusion, just understanding and horror. "You knew?" she asked him, voice shaking. "You let me plan this whole thing knowing you did the exact same thing with her." He reached for her hand. "Alyssa, listen. It's not that simple. I was in a bad place. I felt trapped. I didn't mean for any of this." She yanked her hand back. "How many times are you going to recycle this story?" she demanded. "Was I practiced too? Or am I just the current upgrade until you find the next one?" The crowd murmured louder. Someone in the second row whispered, "Oh my God," into their program. He looked around like a caged animal, searching for an exit that didn't exist. His eyes landed on me again. "This is what you wanted, right?" he spat. "You wanted to ruin my life." I stood up slowly. My legs were steady. My voice was calm. "No," I said. "I just stopped covering for you." We stared at each other across the room. For a second, it was like everyone else disappeared. Just me and the man who'd blown up my life, standing in the wreckage of his own. Alyssa took off her ring, very carefully, like it was something fragile that had turned poisonous in her hand. She pressed it against his chest. "You told me she was crazy," she said quietly. "You told me she was obsessed, that she couldn't let go, that she twisted everything. You never told me you were cheating on your fiancé with me." He grabbed her hand. "Alyssa, please, let me explain. We can get past this. We already have history." "None of that matters now. We're here. This is our day." She pulled back like his touch burned. "It matters," she said, "because if you were willing to do it with me, you're willing to do it to me. I'm not stupid enough to stand here and pretend I don't see that." She turned to his mother. "Thank you," she said, her voice cracked. Then she turned and walked down the aisle, past me, past the whispers, past the shocked faces. A few of her bridesmaids followed, then a cousin, then one of his friends. Like the whole room had suddenly realized the foundation under their feet wasn't as solid as they thought. He stood there, alone at the front, suit perfect, tie straight, face stunned. The officiant cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should take a moment," he said weakly. I picked up my bag, stepped out into the aisle. He watched me walk toward the doors like I was the one leaving him at the altar, not the woman who just peeled off her ring. As I passed him, he hissed under his breath, "Are you happy now?" I stopped, turned my head just enough to meet his eyes. "No," I said evenly, "but I'm finally done letting you write the story." Then I walked out. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, like the whole weight I'd been carrying for months had snapped loose and fallen behind me somewhere between the vows and the exit. I didn't cheer. I didn't dance. I didn't post anything. I just stood in the parking lot for a minute, looking up at the sky, breathing in the cold air, and letting the reality settle. He had humiliated me without blinking. had lied, cheated, abandoned, rewritten history, and still walked around acting like the misunderstood hero in his own movie. All I'd done was roll the credits early and show everyone who the villain really was. Chapter 7: Aftermath and Lessons. The weirdest part of that day was how normal the drive home felt. Traffic lights, pedestrians, someone honking because the car in front of them didn't move fast enough. It was almost offensive that the world just kept going, like a whole wedding hadn't just collapsed in on itself. I pulled into my parking spot, turned off the engine, and just sat there for a minute. Hands on the wheel, heart surprisingly steady. No dramatic sobbing, no shaking, no screaming into the void. I think a part of me had already done all the mourning months before back when I was planning a future with a man who'd already quietly checked out. When I finally went inside, my phone started buzzing. Texts, missed calls, notifications from people who'd been at the wedding, and people who'd heard about it 30 seconds later. Jess, my best friend, called. I answered. "Tell me you're home," she said without even saying hello. "I'm home," I replied. There was a pause. Then, "Emily, what actually happened?" "I'm getting like 5 different versions." I kicked off my shoes, sank onto the couch, and told her. All of it. The mom standing up, the texts being read, Alyssa handing back the ring, the way he'd looked at me like I had ruined his life by refusing to stay quiet. Jess didn't interrupt much. Just the occasional, "No way," and "You're kidding." And one, "I swear to God, if I ever see him in public." When I finished, she was silent for a second. "You know," she said finally, "I thought I wanted to key his car. Now, I think this was better." I let out a small, humorless laugh. "Yeah," I said, "no jail time and better cinematography." "Are you okay?" she asked. And this time, it wasn't the polite version. It was the kind where the person really wants the truth. I thought about it. "I'm weirdly okay," I said slowly. "I'm not happy. I'm not throwing a party, but I feel done. Like something that's been stuck in my throat finally got cleared." "Good," she said, "because he doesn't deserve another second of your life being on pause." Over the next few days, the fallout rippled. Some people messaged me to apologize, to say they believed his mutual breakup story, and now realized how much he'd edited himself into the hero. A couple of his cousins admitted they'd always had a bad feeling about him, but never had proof. Others stayed loyal to him. That's just how it is. Some people would rather hold onto their version of someone than look at who they actually are. I didn't chase anyone. If someone chose not to see what was right in front of them, that was their problem, not mine. He texted me once, a long paragraph about how I'd ambushed him, how I'd weaponized his mother, how I'd humiliated him on the most important day of his life. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. No reply. There was nothing left to say. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't reflecting. He was just mad that his mask had slipped in public. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding my life. Not with some dramatic glow-up montage, just small things. I went back to hobbies I'd dropped to plan a wedding. Long walks with my podcast in. Cooking actual meals for myself instead of ordering whatever was fastest. Seeing friends without scheduling everything around his availability. I moved apartments eventually. not because I couldn't stand the memories, but because I wanted a space that was mine from day one. No ghosts of we in the drawers and corners. Therapy helped too, not in the cry for an hour and leave wrecked way, but in the connect the dots way. Why I ignored my gut. Why I bent over backward to keep things looking perfect. Why I took on all the work in the relationship and called it love. I stopped romanticizing, holding it together at my own expense. Stopped calling my silence maturity when it was really fear of abandonment. Stopped calling his bare minimum effort. There were nights I missed the idea of him, not the real him, the one who lied and cheated and smirked his way through justifications, but the version I'd built in my head, the man I thought I was marrying. But every time I felt that tug, I remembered the messages. You're the upgrade. Once she's out of the picture. All the ways he'd turned me into a problem to solve instead of a person he loved. Missing who I thought he was is not the same as wanting him back. That distinction saved me. Months passed. His name came up less and less. My life stopped being before and after Daniel and went back to just my life. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about that day at the venue. About me sitting in the back row, watching his second attempt at a fairy tale crumble. And I'd wonder if I'd gone too far, if I should have stayed home, if silence would have been the higher road. Then I'd remind myself, all I did was stop lying for him. All I did was tell the truth to the people walking into his next performance. What they did with that truth was up to them. He chose to betray. He chose to handle it the way he did. He chose to build a life on top of a lie not once, but twice. Consequences are not cruelty. They're just the bill coming due. Closure, so, yeah. My fiancé dumped me a week before our wedding. He tried to trade me in quietly, like I was some lease he'd outgrown. And he thought he could just copy-paste our future with someone new and walk away spotless. Instead, he ended up standing in front of a room full of people who finally saw him clearly, at the exact moment he wanted to look his best. Do I think what I did was petty? No. I think it was honest, controlled, measured. I didn't ruin his life. He did that himself, one lie at a time. I just made sure the story didn't end with me labeled as the crazy ex-fiancé who couldn't let go. If you've ever been in anything like this, if someone cheated, lied, blindsided you, then tried to rewrite history to make themselves the hero, trust this. You are not crazy for wanting karma. You are not insane for wanting the truth to come out. But the most powerful revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just refusing to carry their secrets anymore. Refusing to protect someone who would never do the same for you. Refusing to let them turn your pain into their PR. What would you have done in my place? Would you have shown up to that wedding or stayed home and let it happen? And have you ever watched karma show up for someone who thought they'd gotten away with everything? Drop your story in the comments. Your letter to karma might be the next one we read here on Karma's Letter Box.